traffic right to your door. So don't say maybe to all the fun we'll have in store. Surf's up, babe, so come on, ride this wave with me.
Finally, this unit concludes with CE.6d, the roles and powers of the executive branch. Now, in CE.6a and 6b, we briefly touched on the roles that are outlined for the President of the United States. Today, we're going into more specifics about the roles of the presidency. The executive branch in making laws is about how the President, whether it was former President Republican George W. Bush or current President Democrat Barack Obama, how they interact with Congress, their executive departments, meaning members of their cabinets, and federal agencies, and citizens to influence how laws are made. So basically, we're talking about what role does the President have. Although the President does not physically make the laws, the President can have a large sway over the types of laws that are passed in our government. Again, the executive branch of government carries out the law. It does not make the law. Okay? It does not rule on the constitutionality of the law. It, in fact, could propose, other words, it could execute, it could enforce or carry out. Different ways of saying, basically, the President kind of pushes it along, or they can stop it with a veto, rejection. The powers of the executive branch are defined again by the supreme document of our country, the U.S. Constitution. And there are various titles that the President is given. First and foremost, the President is called our Commander-in-Chief. In times of war, although the President must seek approval for war from Congress, the President acts as basically the head of our military and armed forces when we go to war. Okay? Yes, they consult and work with their Joint Chiefs of Staff and various other members of the military branches, but the President is the Commander-in-Chief. The President also is called our Chief of States, meaning a ceremonial figure. He's the one who represents our nation throughout the world. In other countries, the Chief of State is not the person who actually has the legislative powers in the country. For example, in England, the Chief of State would be considered the royal family, the Queen, whereas the power position of policy would go to the Prime Minister. In our country, the President is the Chief of State and in charge of basically proposing legislation. The President is a Chief Executive, meaning he runs the executive branch with the Vice President, their cabinet, and all members of the federal bureaucracy. The President is the Chief Legislator. Like I was saying, the President can get involved and propose ideas such as Obama did with health care or Bush passed his tax cut package, but they cannot physically make the law. Again, a good comparison again is using the United Kingdom. Although the Queen is the Chief of State, a ceremonial figure, she is not the Chief Legislator. That is the Prime Minister. The President is also the Chief Diplomat. Again, a diplomat is someone who represents our nation throughout the world. Okay, the President is that figurehead. When the President can't go, he sends usually the Secretary of State in his or her cabinet to represent them throughout the world. The President is our chief citizen, meaning their actions are supposed to reflect all the morals and integrity of the American people. Again, a couple negative examples would be Clinton's impeachment or Nixon's resignation because of Watergate. The President is head of party, meaning it is the President who represents the head of their party. Bush was the head of the Republican Party for 8 years. President Obama is currently the head of the Democratic Party, and their goal is to help get more of their own members elected throughout the country. So how does the executive branch influence lawmaking? Well, the first thing they do is annually, every year, and I'm sure you're going to have to watch it this year, every year after usually the new year, the President gives what we call a State of the Union address, where they outline their goals and visions for the upcoming year. Okay, this didn't really start taking effect where the President came actually before Congress until Woodrow Wilson did it in the early 1900s. Before, the President would send the speech to be read by a member in the House or the Senate. The governor in our state, actually when you watch this video, he will be the former governor, because either Ken Cuccinelli or Terry McAuliffe will be the new governor, but Bob McDonnell makes a State of the Commonwealth speech. The President can appeal directly to the people. That is when they go on their big publicity led and tour throughout the country, to meet with the American people. Both sides do that. It's to rally support and get people engaged. The president also, again, is the final step of the lawmaking process, step 5. The president can either approve a bill to make it a law, or the president can reject it, what we call a veto. Again, a veto means to reject. And finally, the president can appoint people in his or her cabinet or in the federal bureaucracy and all the various executive agencies to help them carry out the law. Remember, a cabinet is a group of advisors to the president. So what do you have to do according to our Constitution to become President of the United States? Well, first of all, you must be born in the United States, a natural-born citizen. That could also include a military base as well. For example, John McCain was able to run for president even though he was born in a military base overseas. So you must be a native-born citizen. You need your birth certificate to prove you are a natural-born citizen. You must have lived in the U.S. for at least 14 years. So what that means is if you are overseas, you might be a natural-born citizen. But if you go overseas for a job or have to relocate, you need to be back in the United States for at least 14 years to show again that you are a resident of the United States. You must be at least 35 years old to run for President of the United States. A couple trivia questions. The youngest president we've ever had was Teddy Roosevelt. The youngest elected president was John Fitzgerald Kennedy. You can only be president for 2 terms. A term equals 4 years. That stopped after FDR served or was actually elected to a historic 4 terms. Although he died shortly into his 4th term, he was elected to 4. Congress responded with passing a constitutional amendment requiring the president to serve only 2 terms, 8 years. So what is important to understand about today? Again, the legislative branch makes the law, the president enforces it. Okay? The president in the executive branch cannot physically go to Congress and introduce the law in step 1. That must be done by a member of the legislative branch. The president is heavily involved in shaping laws in this country. Don't discount them. They are involved. Although they cannot physically make the law and propose it, they can help craft the law and work with members of his or her own party to work on the law. And it's all the help of cabinets, agencies, regulatory groups that help interpret and help the president carry out the law. Okay? That was the end of Unit 6A, 6B, 6C, and 6D. I hope this helped you. Use these videos to study for your upcoming unit exam.